Hello everyone, welcome back to Soccer Showdown. Joe Archino and Martino Puccio back here with you as always. And once again, we are going to cover everything in the Champions League. Some very important matches this week, Martino. So let's start things off. And of course, I think you have to first address Bayern Munich thrashing, commanding victory over Besiktas. 5-0, they get the victory there. But the big talk from Tuesday was Chelsea against Barcelona. It was very interesting. Messi had not scored in his previous 8 meetings with the Blues, but he changed that with 15 minutes left. That one, it ends in a 1-1 draw. But Martino, it's been a very interesting season. It seems like things there haven't gone smoothly so far. Things with Antonio Conte haven't been perfect. Who is Chelsea this season?
It's so confusing because I think we go through this all the time. The year they won the Champions League, I think they finished to 7th or 8th place with Roberto Di Matteo coming in as the interim coach. Now Antonio Conte, this is his first year coaching them in the Champions League, where they were just playing once a week last year. So that's why they were able to win the Premier League. And now we're seeing this trend again with Roman Abramovich and his teams. There's always rifts with the manager, and it looks like he's on his way out. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was, but it wasn't the worst result in the world. I mean, 1-1 against Barcelona. Messi scores for the first time. He finally gets that monkey off of his back in the most unlikely fashion too, because it happened in the most inexplicable time because Luis Suarez almost went down for a penalty right there. You thought that would have happened, and then he had that great finish. But as for Chelsea, I mean, it's going to be really difficult for them, for me personally, go see them going to Barcelona because we know how tough they are at Camp Nou. We saw what happened at PSG last year. They had that incredible lead going into that game, and then they just came out flat in there. So, I don't know. It varies week to week with them because you can't even go off of what they do in the Premier League because if they struggle there, they go into the Champions League, and then they have a great game. So, I don't know. I think it varies week to week. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they somehow pull it out in Barcelona, but I think I got Barca going on next.
Yeah. Barca's just been so strong. They've been almost unstoppable in La Liga this season, so certainly that's something they can kind of put to the back. Messi, like you said, had a signature strike in this match, but I think we've talked so much of it. Obviously, Neymar still is not there. Is his loss going to be that lingering thing that might just hinder them from holding up the Champions League trophy?
I think it's a multitude of things. I think having Coutinho being cup tied in the first place since he was with Liverpool, not having him hurts a little bit. And then Dembele hasn't been healthy in his first year here at Barcelona. So I think that was struggling too. I know he came on in this game, but the fact that they don't have these guys week in, week out for 90 minutes in the biggest competition with their high-priced players that they combine for over $200 million, I think you need that. And the fact that they don't have that on a consistent basis for this year, it's going to be tough to see them win the whole thing.
Let's now go on to Wednesday's fixtures. And the first one we had is Shakhtar Donetsk. They get it done over Roma 2-1. Roma was up early in this game. They scored in the 41st minute, but then Shakhtar, they come back and they get this one. Big win for them, Martino. And Roma, I think, has probably been one of the bigger surprises in how they played in this competition this year.
Yeah, I think they did. They did great in the group stage. It was one of their better ones in recent memory, actually, because we know they've struggled from time to time in the Champions League. Hasn't been their competition. They go up early with Cengiz Ünder, who's been fantastic for them the past couple games in Serie A. He carried it over into the Champions League when he got the start. They got their away goal, but it doesn't. The optics aren't good when you go up 1-0 on the road and then you end up losing 2-1 like that. I think you would take that if you were Roma going into it, just the final scoreline. But the fact that it ended the way it did leaves a bad taste in their mouth. And they have a game against Milan coming up on this Sunday. So it's something that they can't carry over into the weekend because that race for that Champions League spot in Serie A is getting really tight now with those 3 teams. So it's really going to be interesting to see how they do in the return leg back at Rome.
The Serie A race is very tight indeed. Roma in 3rd place right now in Serie A. But do they have enough to go back to the Stadio Olimpico? They do get the important road goal. Do they have enough to go back there, even with their tough match this weekend, you think, in getting it done?
I think they do. I think Shakhtar was a really good matchup for them in the first place. There's not a lot of star power. They're not really a perennial team that contends for this cup in the first place. And you know what? Stadio Olimpico is one of the more difficult places to play anyways. And I think you just couple that in with Dzeko. Hopefully they get Nangolan back in for this. And then Under, if he keeps performing well, I think Roma can advance. I mean, Alisson has been fantastic for them. You could argue he's been the best keeper in Italy this year. So I like where Roma's at, and I like for them to advance as long as they don't have a performance where Shakhtar scores one and then they just fold like they did this week.
Let's now go to the final match, and this is the one where there was obviously the most drama, and that is Sevilla and Man United, a 0-0 draw. Now, Martino, we could go in so many different directions with this, but I think basically everyone agrees and is in agreement. Sevilla dominated the game, but David De Gea was absolutely phenomenal. Monster saves. He was as good as it gets. But let's start with one of the biggest points for Man United. Paul Pogba, obviously on the bench for this game. Just a summer ago, it seems like we were talking about is Paul Pogba, the impact he was going to make, the big payday he got. What's happened with Pogba at Man United?
I mean, I think this is just a continuation of a Raiola client and Jose Mourinho's egos just battling each other. Because we know what happened with Paul Pogba, right? He was let go as a free agent, went to Juve, dominated there, ended up going as what at the time was the most expensive transfer in the world.
Neymar took care of that.
Well, yeah, he more than doubled that now, and that's only going to go up. But he had a good first season. He did very well in the Europa League and got him back to the Champions League. And they did pretty well in their group. They won their group, and they got a good matchup here. But the fact that he's being dropped in a match like this is only indicative of the rift that's going on behind the scenes. And you know what? And it's sad because he is one of the more talented players in the world. And I get on him a lot because I don't think he puts in the consistent effort and quality that's determined week in, week out by someone that has a price tag like that. And the fact that Mourinho's coming in a game where they need him on the road there, and they could have won it because De Gea was the reason why they ended up there with a 0-0 draw. It could have been really bad. They didn't grab an away goal, and we know how important that is to have. The fact that they don't have that, and if they're going to have to depend on David De Gea again to do that back at home, it's a lot to ask. And you know what? If they don't have Pogba in there, I don't even know how he stays past this season, especially with the World Cup coming up. And then just further on, Mourinho too. I mean, it's really a head-scratcher for the guy who's supposed to be the special one.
I mean, I think, and that's where I think a lot of this lies. And I've always, look, I think Mourinho's as good as it gets, but do you think that there's something at the manager position there that's just maybe not clicking with the players? You think it might be egos? I mean, we remember, he was there at Chelsea, won the title, the next season didn't even finish it out. And it was a rift in the locker room. It seems like the connection with the players just broke. They're still, if it wasn't for Manchester City's dominance in the Premier League, they're still in second place there. But it just seems like something's not working.
I think you could even go back to Real Madrid when it didn't really work out there. They brought him in to do one thing, and that was to win La Decima, and he couldn't do that. And then he had that whole rift with Cristiano. And I remember when he went back to go and manage Chelsea, they had that preseason game where they faced off for the first time, and Cristiano scored a bunch of goals on him. I think the game might have been out in L.A. But I think it was just indicative of the relationship between Mourinho and his players. And obviously we saw it was happening in the dressing room at Chelsea as well. He didn't even last that long afterwards, especially they just won the title. I know that's a narrative that's been going on in the Premier League. We saw it with Ranieri last year too. Probably going to happen with Conte again.
Probably.
So third time's the charm. But you know what? I don't even know. It's a lot of factors. But I mean, stability. We talk about Chelsea. United's going to be going through another manager again if Mourinho isn't staying here. You go David Moyes, Louis van Gaal. They really haven't found the heir apparent and the replacement for Sir Alex Ferguson. And you know what? I mean, if they get eliminated here, you really got to start scratching your head and wonder if there's big moves to be made again this coming summer.
Well, that's what I'll ask you next. They do get to go home for this next leg against Sevilla. Do they right their wrongs? Do they see through things there?
I think that Paul Pogba needs to play. If they don't have Pogba in there, it's going to be really tough. I'm not that keen on Sevilla anyways because of their manager, Vincenzo Montella. He came in the middle of the season. This is, I think, his third game he would be managing in Champions League ever. So I'm not that confident about that. But I do think they have the talent to go and get a goal there. I think it just depends. If David De Gea shows it up like he did, I don't think anyone's going to have an easy time beating United on the home turf.
It's risky business, but when you've got David De Gea behind net, you've got some pretty confident there. Last week we did this, so I think we'll do it this week to end things too. Out of all the teams that we saw on Tuesday and Wednesday, last week we did the ones we saw. Who do you think is, if you had to bet which of these teams was going to win this competition, which one do you think it would be?
I chose them last year, and unfortunately they didn't win because they went against the champions Madrid. But I love Bayern here. Ever since they made the move to fire Carlo Ancelotti, a little bit of a head scratcher because we know how good of a manager he really is. But under Jupp Heynckes, after they got him back, they've been absolutely amazing. They've run away with the league again. Well, I'm not a shocker there. But the fact that they just absolutely destroyed Besiktas on the road 5-0, and now they could live comfortably in the return leg. I really like them moving forward out of this group. I think this week's group is a lot weaker than the week we saw prior to this. So I think Bayern moving forward would be my choice out of all the teams.
I always like Bayern too, and I loved Carlo Ancelotti, but I still can't go against Barcelona. I know things haven't been perfect, but to me, I just love the way from what I've seen from them in La Liga. I think something is just going to work out and click their way. And look, I mean, it's easy to sit here and say that when you have Messi and all those players on that team, but to me, I don't bet against Messi until I have a reason not to. So I'm going to go with Barca. Right. You're going with Bayern Munich, and we'll certainly see. That's all we have for you on this episode of Soccer Showdown. He's Martino Puccio, and I'm Joe Archino. We'll see everybody in the next episode.